Hey, here we go. So, of course, first I want to welcome all of you for joining in on this Saturday to the archetype of Libra. And I had it written as to balance, but I want to change it to I balance. As I was going through the information, it's like I balance. And what is that like for you inside? So before I get started into the details of talking about Libra, I first want to go over some reminders here about our next and final class. I will have covered after this next masterclass in October 19th, Saturday, October 19th at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Saving Time. We will go and do Scorpio, and it will be the final of the 12. I started in Sagittarius of last year, and so here we are and going to be doing Scorpio and today doing Libra. So that'll be the last masterclass of the year. And then the other thing I just want to remind you, if you haven't, to take advantage of the 50-minute sessions that I'm offering during this time period of doing this masterclass, only for those of you who have signed up. It's a 50-minute session. It's $77, and I want to invite you to take advantage of that if you feel called to want to go deeper, or whether it's around this information or something else. I'm happy to do whatever, is where you feel guided, you want to get some support. The other thing I want to announce is I just completed Shasta's Sacred Journey 2024. I'm gearing up for 2025 already because it's kind of how it needs to happen. And I will be facilitating two trips to Shasta. And the first one will be on September 4th through the 8th. And the second will be 11th through the 15th. And if you want more information on that, please let me know. This did fill up fast this last year. That's why I put in another a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that this time as well. So if you're interested, shoot me an email. The other thing is I'm going to be at SLC next week, which is Spiritual Life Center. It's over by Country Club Plaza in that area off off El Camino. And I'll be doing the Women of Spirit, and the Women of Spirit is a monthly group that comes together at Spiritual Life Center, and they always invite me each year. And my date is this Saturday, October 5th, and that is from 10 to 12. And the topic that I am going to be speaking about is embracing change, the power of acceptance, and finding peace in the present moment. And I'm doing that off the heels of our election coming up because it's bringing up a lot of stuff for people. And while I won't be speaking about things politically, I feel like the power of acceptance and finding peace in whatever direction things go for us, and for humanity, is really important for us right now. And it also segs away into what we're going to be talking about today, which is Libra. So Libra, I balance. So I'm curious to know, are there any Libras in the house today? Oh, there's two. There's Linda and there's Bev. Okay, right on. Okay. And so, as you know, as I always say, um, when doing these master classes, is that it doesn't matter whether you have it or not, but if you do, it's going to really speak to you even more succinctly. But Libra, we all carry the energy of Libra as an archetype for our spiritual path, for our medicine walk, because we are not just this one dimension. We are multifaceted. And so these archetypes, these signs, all give us information. They all give us wisdom and knowledge to our own personal journey. So my Libra people, yes, you will feel a resonance with this in a different way. And then I'm sure many of you have people who are in the sign of Libra that and you'll notice a lot of these characteristics. But again, I want to invite you to look at this as your own personal journey as well. Like, how do I relate to this archetype, and how do I see that play out for me? And as I go through it, you're going to totally get what I'm saying. Okay, so when I sent out the email, I always send out what's called the symbol for Libra. And I sent out the scales, right? The scales, the balancers, the scales of justice. So Libra is symbolized by that symbol, the symbolization of the scales of justice and balance. Okay. Libra is also the lover. It is the lover. And it is called the lover because it is about dancing with the with paradox. It's about dancing with the opposites. And so again, if you look at the scales, you have the opposites on each side. If you look at justice, there's what's considered to be quote unquote right versus what is wrong. So we're going to be talking about that. So Libra in essence is about the duality of life. So when we talk about the duality of life, we got to enter in the word how things can become polarized. Now, life is dual in nature, right? So how do we live? How do we live in the duality and the paradox of life without being imbalanced? Because that will be the tendency, is to be able to find the balance within the duality of opposites. And this energy is so significant right now. It is such a significant archetype right now because we are talking about the soul of humanity as well as our own personal journey. And the soul of humanity is in a place right now where there is a great deal of separation within itself, within humanity. And we are all part of humanity because we are unity. So each one of us has this experience of some sort of separation within ourselves, because if we didn't have that, it would not be reflected within humanity. So it many times will point outside of ourselves and say it's out there, but we all know it's in here. It is within. Okay. So the reflection of the separation of humanity is a reflection of our own separation within ourselves. And so then each one of us together can change the direction of the evolution of humanity. And that's what's happening right now. So it's important that we use the medicine of this archetype and what it represents now, like now in our lives, to because this is vital for what is going to happen to us as humanity. Not only us as a culture, as us living in the United States, but and that's more of, in the sense, the microcosm, but the macrocosm is humanity itself. So another aspect of Libra is beauty, the artist. So every sign has a partner of a planet, has a planet partner. This is a little bit of astrology, but I need to explain this because I think it's very important to know this. And the partner planet for Libra is Venus. Okay. And Venus in Greek mythology is represented by Aphrodite, the lover, the beauty of Aphrodite. And this is not glamour beauty. This is a totally different thing. This is the beauty of the spirit. This is the beauty of the soul. This is not beauty of the flesh. Now, the artistry of Libra comes from your ability to be in balance from the inside out. And when that balance is in a harmonious state, that is projected as beauty. If you go into nature, like many of us spent some time in nature here over the last couple of weeks, and you go into nature and you see the beauty of nature, you see the balance of nature, because nature carries um, a natural state of balance, just as you do, just as we all do, because balance is a natural state of being. And what throws us off that balance is determined by the distractions that we have in our life, by the things we get plugged into, by the relationship to time. I don't have enough time. All of these and many other different things, as we know. It could be addiction that can get us out of balance. So what Libra helps us to do is to help to bring ourselves back into that natural, harmonious place of balance. And so how do we do that? We'll be talking about that. So before I go there, I want to talk about the archetypes. So this will help in understanding more about how you can relate to Libra itself. Now, some of the archetypes of Libra is the healer. And to heal is to make whole. So when our scales of our internal self are out of balance, we see it many times in our physical body. We see it in our emotional body. We see it in our mental body. So when we heal in a area of our life, in one of those areas of our life, we actually bring our spirit back to a place of more wholeness. And that is balance. Libra is also the archetype of the mediator, to mediate between two things. It is also justice and the judge. It's the archetype of marriage. And the two scales also represent the partnership. It's a partnership. You cannot have one without the other. We cannot live in one. We can't, it's like we can't live polarized. We must, it's about the balancing of duality. And so many times we hear like right now, oh, for example, our country is polarized on one side, right? But really what's happening is there is a duality that's trying to come into balance. And so we feel these polarizations. So ultimately, it's about the partnership between two people, between our personality self and our soul self. We can say our ego self and our soul self. It is the archetype of the lover, the artist, and the diplomat. Okay, everybody tracking that? Everybody good on that? Okay. Now, Libra loves the beauty that blends the inner and the outer self. Libra creates art and relationships that rebalance. Okay, this is the working of Libra energy. Libra recognizes that the beauty of justice is what we are looking for. We're looking for the balance of that, the balance of justice. And Libra understands the value of intimacy between equals. So true partnership and the idea of the larger life of humanity can be lived well when partnered. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to have an actual partner, but this is about the partnering even with the insides of ourself. Because Libra is about synthesizing the opposites. So, for example, the balance of masculine and feminine, those are partners. The balance of the mind and the heart. And as I said earlier, the balance of like the soul and the personality. And so looking at this with Libra, examining for yourself for a moment or just dropping in for a moment, like how do you treat those two things differently within yourself? Is the mind running the show where the heart is become second nature, or is it completely run by maybe the heart, but the heart is one where it is more in shadow, where it comes into an enabling or codependent relationship with oneself? Is the ego running the show, and the soul is getting squashed? And even though one knows like this is my passion, this is what I want to do, but the mind's going, I don't know. The ego's going, I don't, who do you think you are? I don't think you can do it. And, we have this whole like duality within ourselves. So Libra is all about bringing ourselves back into partnership, which is bringing ourselves back into balance. And a couple things that come up with this when I was going through this is, and these aren't prompt questions that I added, but they were questions that I think that are important to just contemplate. And that is, how do we treat those who think differently? Because this is all part of the duality. Like, how do we treat others who don't think like we do? Like, how do we treat others who have different values than we do? Do you make them wrong? Do you judge them? How do you treat people who are not as enlightened as you are? And enlightened, of course, is a relative term, right? It's not like, oh, I'm enlightened and I know everything. But when we have an awareness or an awakening to something, that is a form of enlightenment. So maybe people who are on a path where they're not even aware that they're on some sort of a path, that there is a a um, a consciousness to things, and they're living based on reactivity, and they're living based on unconscious reactive habit patterns. And so, like, oh, well, people will say things like, well, I don't know why they don't get it. How come they can't figure it out? Like, what's wrong with them? Right? Because then we become part of that duality. Okay. Now, any questions, anything, any comments or anything at this point? Curious. Whoops, I lost you guys. Yeah, anything that anybody wants to put in here before I continue? Nope, we're good. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Heidi.
Totally on track. Go ahead.
Okay, can you comment on that?
Um, the days that I feel balanced,
Uh-huh.
it is such a glorious feeling. And I know that it's not going to last. And I want to grasp onto that knowing to be able
Mm.
to keep the balance. So you're totally on track. Please, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you didn't interrupt. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the shadow of Libra. I think it's important to bring this piece in. So the shadow of Libra, where I say it's the balancer, sometimes what we do is we try so hard to keep things balanced and quote unquote fair, is there's an excess of diplomacy, and we become so agreeable, and we become so accommodating, to where we self-sacrifice our own self in attempt to keep harmony. We actually create disharmony within ourselves. We actually create imbalance within ourselves. And that's something that is like, is so huge, and it's so shadow, meaning it's so unconscious. Like, I just want everything to be okay. Well, of course we do. I mean, most of us want everything to be okay. And so we will accommodate, we will be agreeable to things that actually create imbalance. Another thing, and this is a biggie, another biggie. Go ahead, Bev.
That has definitely been me for 69 years.
Mm.
I'll be 71 in a couple of weeks. And yes, major changes in the last year. And whether some of this shadow will still sneak up on me, in the future, I have really risen and speak up. And I'm not that I'm not agreeable, but I don't give my power away. I don't just let everything be okay. I I voice my opinion, my desires, not just let it be okay that somebody can have their way. So I'm balancing that out a bit. And with
Beautiful.
your help too, I will add.
Oh, right on.
Work with you has
Beautiful.
really helped that.
I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because
Yes.
this is something that I'm going to say Libras can get into, but all of us, I think, can on some level, because we want harmony, and we want things to be okay. But at what cost, right? At what cost is that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
lost myself.
it's what we do, right? We lose
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Heidi?
No.
Oh, you were unmuted. Okay. Ruth.
The balancing for me of being of being conscientious about being a better person, and being aware of how I interact with people, and the opposite or the other side of not being me. Those two, and accepting and not being a chameleon to just give way to others, but just to be aware of how I present either thoughts or ideas, and in the working of being a better person, however, not losing the good in me and trying to transform so much that I just that I'm not just being. Is that making sense? You're muted, Teresa.
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah. And I just want to bring this piece up, just kind of going back to the mediator archetype and the accommodation. If we are put in a position as small children to do that, that then brings in a pattern of that, because children, we want harmony at all costs. Like, we want to feel safe at all costs. And sometimes we do it because we're not feeling unsafe, whether we're children or not. It is part of a safety mechanism that we do to mediate. Yeah, and not realizing that we're self-sacrificing ourselves. As children, of course, we never know that. But as adults, we have privy to more information and life experience where we can hopefully change that, make that different. But another shadow aspect of Libra, and this is one that I see where people get stuck in. I mean, and I mean stuck, I don't mean for a little while, I mean stuck. And this has to do with the right, wrong, good, bad, black, white. And this is where the victim comes in, the victimizer comes in to say, it is, it is from my perspective, let's say from one's perspective, that stance that you're taking is wrong. And let's take something like the death penalty, and we're not going to have a discussion about it, but I want to use that as an example. Like, and so then if this is something that we feel great conviction in, and let's say we believe it is wrong and someone believes it is right, this is where these separations, this is what's got us into this place that we're in right now politically, even though, again, I don't want to go down that road, but these are the type of examples that happen for us. And so then what we do is that we say, you're wrong, and we will victimize other people. We will victimize, and victimize doesn't necessarily mean we go out and actually get physical. It doesn't mean that we actually do something to that person, but we victimize other people by lack of acceptance, not being able to accept somebody else's values, feelings, opinions about something. We feel threatened by it. And anytime we feel threatened, we know that fear is on deck. We know that we feel a little bit out of control to some degree, or a lot out of control. And the other thing is that our victim becomes animated. And it is a natural, unconscious response to want to victimize when our victim is under threat. Whether we go and we victimize the other person, or that we victimize ourselves in some way. And sometimes people will do that. They will victimize themselves, whether it's the thoughts and the thoughts and the words that they're using against themselves. So that's a big piece, and that's what's really on deck for us right now, is that you're wrong and I'm right. When we see life as black and white, so that becomes a shadow, polarized view of life. And can we find the middle way? This is one of the things that when I was studying more about Libra, is that I learned that Libra also represents the way of the Buddha. Okay. And the reason why I'm bringing that up about the way of the Buddha here is that the Buddha said, this is a quote, "The solution to all suffering in the world and the way to enlightenment is to walk the noble middle path." And so what is the noble middle path? It is walking between both of those polarities, where we hold both of them in the same, in reverence, but we're walking the center line of it. And that is how we heal the separation of humanity. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And I'm sure many of you have heard that line of the middle way, the middle path, how to walk the middle path. Yeah. Does anybody want to comment here? Have something that's come up for them before I continue? Nope. Okay. Okay. So Libra invites us to unify opposites by dancing with paradox and sidestepping that polarizing idea of right and wrong, black or white, and being um, the artist. It's about dancing in that with grace and beauty. And I want to describe, I've been using the word beauty, and I mentioned that it's not of the flesh, but I want to just share this piece with you because I think this can help you to understand what I mean by beauty. And I'm going to use the example because I just came back from Shasta, and in Shasta, the beauty there is just amazing, right? And it's physical beauty, but there's also energetic beauty. And me as a facilitator, what I got to witness was the beauty of the participants and to watch them in nature, to watch them through the process. And that was beauty. It was absolutely beautiful. And so beauty holds a very high octave of frequency, just as love does. And this is something that I learned as I was studying like theosophy and esoteric astrology, which esoteric astrology is very different than Western astrology, because Western astrology is working with the personality, like, oh, these are your tendencies. Whereas esoteric astrology is this is the journey of the soul. And so the word beauty comes in because beauty is of that high frequency of love, and in some ways it is as equal to love. Beauty is. So to watch people in process, to watch people make shifts, it is a beautiful thing. And where there is beauty is love, there is love. Like if you were to look at a piece of art that someone has channeled and you can feel the soul in the art, there is beauty, there is love there. And it's like it's almost synonymous, if not synonymous. So I'm sharing to invite you into bringing that word of beauty into your life, to bring it in a different way, take it out of the glamour aspect of it and bring it in the soul context of what it really implies for us, beauty. I'm going to read something that I came across today, and it relates to the healer archetype within Libra. And this is a piece that was written by, I believe it was written by Judith Anadea, who is like the guru of the chakra system. She has many books about the chakras. And so this was on a card that I received while I was in Shasta. And this is just a piece of the reading, but I thought it was be perfect to bring it in. And it's called The Healer. I am the healer. I bring things back into health and balance. My wholeness is a natural state of everything. Where there are wounds, I bring mending. Where there are toxins, I bring cleansing. Where there is pain, I bring release. Where there are separations, I bring connection. Where there is war, I bring peace. I thought that was beautiful. So that was beautiful to tie into what we're talking about today. Okay, so let's see. I would love to look at, the prompt questions, and I would love to hear from you. And then before I do, I just want to comment on the beauty and grace of Libra, and to invite you maybe over the next week or two to bring this archetype into your life, to invite it into your life, to invite it into your life and see how it shows up, whether it's through the shadow aspect of maybe choices that you're making or actions that you're taking that you haven't always been aware of. And that how can you bring that connection? How can you bring that natural state of balance back into your life? And a lot of times we think of balance as equal, and balance is not equal. Balance is just that. It's balance. It's what feels harmonious to us. And then the other piece before I get started on the prompt questions, because I didn't mention this, and this is a really important thing. This is huge, actually. I can't believe I didn't bring it in earlier, but Libra is about right relationship. Now, this isn't right as in right or wrong, but this is right relationship in terms of how it pertains to integrity for ourselves, how it pertains to love, how it pertains to beauty, how it pertains to how what are the right actions to take or to be within right relationship with something externally and internally. For example, when we were in, I got to keep bringing this up because it's just top of my mind. When we were in Shasta, we were in one area called Panther Meadows, and you can feel the reverence there. Now, to drop a piece of litter there, to just throw something on the ground felt so out of right relationship. So it's that sort of a reverence that that is missing in our daily lives for things. Like, how do you treat someone that cuts you off while driving? Like, what would be the right relationship action to take? It wouldn't be the finger, right? But think about that, because this piece of Libra here, this is what creates or doesn't create war, whether it's literal war or war within ourselves, conflict within ourselves, because the scales of justice, when those are imbalanced, that creates conflict. When the scales of our own internal self are not in balance, it creates an inner conflict. And Libra is here to bring in right relationship. Do we judge others for because they think differently? Do we treat others because they think differently, or they look differently, or they act differently, or they, whatever it may be? So this is a really powerful piece here with Libra. It's a very powerful archetype. You know, they always always are, but specifically now, right now, it's important because we're talking about the duality of what's happening in our country, in our world, in humanity, the soul of humanity. And as a reminder, I say the soul of humanity because humanity, we are humanity. So we are one. We are not all these different people, even though we are, we're not, right? And so we work for humanity. You know, it's like you and your own, if we separate ourselves for a moment and like my own little vortex of world, your own little vortex of world and your own little reality, right? And you're working on something to heal, to make yourself whole. Like that's what we're doing for humanity, because we are that. We're part of this evolution. And so how do we do that? We do that first within ourselves. We go internal with ourselves. Because as I said in the beginning, we are the what we see out there is a reflection of what's inside in varying degrees in all of us. Okay, so let's go to the questions. I'm going to just post them just in case not everybody has them who came on. And I'm just going to go ahead and read through them, and you can answer whichever one feels the most compelling. I really want to hear from you. So number one is, what does it mean to dance with two opposites within myself and synthesize them into one? Like, what does that mean to dance? Do I see life from only one perspective? such as black or white, right or wrong, maybe not as a whole, but different situations? Can I hold my position when challenged by others rather than reversing my opinion to keep peace? That's the accommodator. Do I feel victimized when others don't see my side of the story? Can I organize my life around beauty and balance while trusting the moments when I'm off balance as part of the dance? I love that, right? Yeah. So, who would like to make a comment, whether it is to the questions or just to what you heard or what you're feeling? Because I know there's some feelings going on. There's some information that's brewing. So go ahead and unmute yourself. Please share. We really learn off each other. Just as an FYI, when I send this recording out, I get feedback from people saying, it really helped me when this one person said da 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 da. So yeah. So who would like to comment? Go ahead, unmute. Definitely want to hear. Come on, something's happening inside. Somebody has something to say. Go ahead, Bev.
Okay. Well, with number 4 about feeling victimized, it's funny because a lot of times people won't even let me tell my side of the story. I could just get shut down with interruptions so they can speak. So I do feel victimized that I can't even express myself. And I really do just shut down then and let them say their piece and just leave it at that. I mean, I just, fine. So, yeah. And then as far as like, even with your question on number 3, I don't reverse my opinion. And in the past, I probably wouldn't have maybe spoken my opinion, or once they spoke their word, I would just let it be. But I'm more willing to have a conversation about things now. Um, sharing my side, I'm in more balance now, and I feel it within myself, and it doesn't matter to me. Let me see, how do I say that? I guess just because I have a different opinion, where before I didn't want the judgment. If my opinion is different, something must be wrong because it's different. Oh no. And I didn't want the judgment that came along with that. And now I don't care. Now I don't care. I'm happy to share my opinion, and we don't have to agree.
I love it. Yeah. There is a saying, and the saying is harmony through conflict. We come to harmony sometimes. The only way we can come to harmony sometimes is through conflict. And I will hear people often say, well, I don't like conflict. I don't want to create conflict, nor do I not like conflict. And I get it. I get it. We want to avoid that. And maybe because we just don't want to create the ruffles, or, we all want to get along. But really what gets underneath that is that there's a fear. And there's a fear of conflict because it's going to bring up feelings, and we go, oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to get, let's say, for example, beat up? And it's not necessarily physical, it's emotional, right? Or mental. Like, am I going to be able to defend myself? And here's the thing is that we think it goes into a defensive position, like defense has to come in, but that's not what really uh, um, conflict is about. That is a shadow conflict that we have to defend. Because what I'll share with people is there's nothing to defend. There truly is nothing to defend. When we're having to defend ourselves, that's a shadow power thing that's happening there. And we don't want to make conflict into power. We want to have a conflict come up to resolve and to be able to express what we're feeling in order to come to harmony. Now, harmony doesn't necessarily mean that the two people in conflict are going to resolve it, but we can have resolution through the communication of how we feel, what's happening inside of us, that we were able to express ourselves. Because we're so accustomed to shadow power that there has to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And that is so such a construct. It's such a construct of what of what society and culture and all of that have created. It's part of the problem, because that's not power. That's shadow power. Right, wrong. So to be able to speak our own opinion, whether someone agrees with us or not, but be able to get that out is important, because that is how we heal. That is how we create harmony within ourselves. And I'm sure all of you can relate to this, where something has happened, maybe occurred with another person, and maybe you didn't say anything at that time, but it's eating away at you. And you know how that is. It's like, oh God, we can't process it, right? Like we can't get it, we can't seem to process it out through our body. And I always know, if I can't process it out of my body, that it means that I'm probably going to need to have a conversation with that person, if it's possible. Sometimes you're just going to have to try to process it yourself. Maybe you get support with it. But yeah, that thing that was unsaid, I can go back and say that. There's no rule that says I can't go back and have a conversation. And I know that that can feel scary, that we can feel like a heartbeat that's in our chest is in our throat, right? Because it's our fifth chakra, it's our will, right? But then just to be able to say it, we don't have to have the other person to agree. That's the thing, is we think we have to come to an agreement. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. It's not necessary. Because then again, that becomes, you need to say you're sorry. You need to see my side of the story. No, they don't. They don't have to do anything. They truly don't. And that's where we get into conflict, that's shadow. Yeah, anybody else want to say or comment? Heidi.
I know there are two sides of Heidi, and I believe that I recognize them when she comes around, whichever one's coming around. And I think the biggest part of the good dance is the acceptance of both of those people, both of those thoughts, both of those idiosyncrasies, whatever they might be, just to accept them both and know that each is learning from the other. And I feel it frequently. Yeah, and therein lies judgment sometimes. Yeah, it's a whole bag of wonderful goodness that comes sometimes at the same time, when the bag is tied at the end and somebody hits me in the head and goes, it's like, whoa, okay, which side of Heidi is going to do the thing now, right? So yeah, acceptance is it's big. And to dance properly, you must accept your partner.
Beautiful.
Was I not unmuted?
No, you were unmuted. We heard it all.
Oh,
That
good. Okay.
that was beautiful, Heidi. That was absolutely beautiful. And what that brings up is exactly, it's that partnership with ourself
Mhm,
and knowing all parts of ourself, because we are duality ourselves.
mhm.
And um it's not about not having the duality. It's about finding the middle way with our duality, right? That's what I talked about earlier. And so it is accepting, I always like to use this Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because we are all of that,
Yeah.
right? And so when we try to live, I'm gonna mute you just for a second, Heidi, just because of the feedback. So when we try to live in one of those, and this is something spiritual communities get really caught up in, they get caught up in like, I always got to live, I always got to, do the spiritual thing. Well, you know what? Sometimes we get triggered, and it's like, yeah, good luck with that, right? And so we're suppressing a part of ourselves. And so what came up when Heidi was speaking was also like the forgiveness in that. It doesn't give us a hall pass to do it. But there's some times when things come up, and it can hit something really deep inside of us. And so then we make some choices and do some things, but to find the forgiveness in that. Linda, were you going to say something? Yeah, go for it.
What you just said about the right and wrongness and all that, I am a true Libra. I hate conflict, but it depends. If I'm one-on-one with somebody, I will state my opinion and, talk about it, get both sides, and don't necessarily come out with a right or wrong kind of thing. It's like agree to disagree or whatever. But when I'm in a group and my opinion is different from what others are saying, I will shut down because I do not like conflict. I turn into someone who self-sacrifices, becomes too accommodating, because I don't want to appear different. I don't want to stand out. I like to keep to myself what my true opinions are sometimes. And it depends, like relationships, like with my family. I avoid conflict because then I get defensive immediately. So I'm trying to work on that because even last week, oh, it was a bad situation. And I just left the situation. I just packed up my stuff, got Gideon, and we left because I did not want to get defensive and have a fight with my brother because I couldn't do anything right last week with him. And I knew I was getting on I was getting him mad. And I started to get triggered, but then I go, no, I don't want to rock the boat. I'll just leave. I'll just go home. And that's what I did. So there's a lot I need to work on because I live more in the shadow of Libra than in the, you know, what Libra truly is, you know. But I people do come to me with problems a lot, and they voice what's bothering them or what's and they seek my opinion. So I try to help and they always feel better. But then I'm left with all this stuff and it's hard to process sometimes. I get weighed down by when people or friends are hurting. I want to fix them or fix the situation so they'll feel better. I naturally do that too. And then it's like, who do I have to help me? You know? So I'm trying to work on all that and be more in the light rather than the shadow of Libra.
Wow, thank you, Linda, for your vulnerability. Yeah, thank you very much. Um, a couple things. When we're in a situation and we have a different opinion, what I have learned to say, because sometimes for some of us, I tend to be reactionary when there's something that comes up that I have a really different opinion about. My unconscious reaction, if I'm in an unconscious state, will be Like I want to just boom, I want to just give my opinion right away. But this is what I've learned to do is I've learned to say, I see that differently. And just saying it like that, it brings it down, it brings it down a notch. And it's not like, oh, I don't see, it's not like being confrontational, because which would be shadow way. It's like, oh, I see that differently. And then offer up that perspective that you have. And then, because see, if we come at things in a defensive sort of a way, we're going to get a defensive reaction. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid that in conflict because we want harmony. Ultimately, we want harmony. Even if that person on the other side isn't into harmony, we want to keep harmony and balance within ourselves. And the other thing, and I don't know if this pertains to your brother, but I'm just going to say it because it came up and this comes from a song. I think it's not Kenny Loggins, Kenny, the one, I don't, you guys will know. It's know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Right? Because there's times when it's like, you know what? I'm just not going to say anything because that's in the best interest of it all, because I know what my truth is inside. But we want to be able to differentiate that from not acquiescing power. Right? Because see, power is not loud. You guys who have worked with me have heard me say this. Power is not loud and obnoxious. Power is quiet. So sometimes we just know when to fold them because it's not worth the battle, because maybe who we're talking to is in a place where they could not even hear it. And we don't have to prove anything. We don't have to prove ourselves. Yeah, that's a great song. Yes. Who is that artist? Does
Kenny
anybody?
Rogers.
Kenny Rogers. Yeah.
Know when to hold them, know when to walk away. Know when to fold them, know when to walk away. The walk
Okay.
away part's the hard. That's the hardest.
Yes.
Right.
And yeah, so Paula made a comment that yes, so much of diplomacy is languaging. Absolutely. Yeah, Heidi.
Um, I wanted to comment on something that Linda talked about, that need that we all have, I think, when you want to fix something or fix someone. And oftentimes when we are speaking to another person or we are listening to another person, they really don't want you to heal them. They just want to be heard. We all want to be heard. And if we can listen without being judgmental, that's a like ace in the hole. Can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah,
There
I'm
you go.
muted. When I'm muted and I start talking, it puts this little band up there and then it won't let me unmute myself. I can't get to it. So yeah, but it tells me right away, you're muted. Yeah, exactly. And then and then Paula made a comment and she says, and I know when to run.
It's hard.
Right, because that's Libra, right? It's finding the balance. What's our balance? And it's all different for each of us. But we know when we're not in balance because we can actually feel the misalignment in our body. And it's a matter of dropping into our body, being in touch with our body. Yeah. All right. Anybody else want to comment before we end here? I'm just going to see. Yeah, I have, if I had any more information I wanted to share, but no, this is just more our portion where we answer the prompt questions or whatever's coming up. So anybody else? No. Okay. Wow. This was great. This was great. Yeah, Libra, powerful archetype for us, right? Balance. I balance. And one other little thing that could be of help with balance is, finding what gets you excited. We find balance by what gets us excited, what turns us on, what do we feel passionate about? And that passion and that excitement and that turn on is day to day, you know? It's the little things. I was excited to go to the farmer's market this morning. I love being at the farmer's market in the morning, right? Like that feels like balance. That becomes a balance for me before I come and I sit and I do this. And yeah, taking a bath for me is that. So find those little things that bring you into balance or that bring balance into your life. And then know if you feel like, oh, I can't do it because I don't have time. There's not enough time in the day. That's a mindset. That is a construct. That is a mindset of being in the shadow of time, where time has authority over you. Okay. All right. Thank you all for being on this call today. Scorpio next month. It's Scorpio's my favorite because I'm Scorpio, so I've got good stuff for Scorpio to talk about. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all. I'll send out the recording for those of you who have missed it. I am going to stop it right now.